It is your Classic Metal Show right here on theclassicmetalshow.com. That, of course, was Overkill. The name of that tune was Hammerhead. That is from Live at Overhausen. And a guy that's always live, whether he's on stage, whether he's on the phone, wherever he is the one, the only, the lead vocalist and the main man of Overkill. It is Bobby Blitz. Bobby, how are you, man?
Good to be on the Classic Metal Show, Chris. I'm feeling very classic today myself, as we're talking about some old songs like Hammerhead and getting into the thrash metal.
No doubt, dude. Well, Bobby, I gotta say, first and foremost, man, before we even talk about the DVD, you have just been on probably I would say the strongest string of writing that Overkill and yourself have ever been on. Seems like for at least 10, maybe 15 years now, it has been new record every year, great new record every year, record that most people consider in the top 5 of metal albums every year, man. And that's a testament to how hard you work and how focused you stay.
Well, that's a great compliment. There is no plan. I think that for the 30 plus years that we've been in this mix, we've been always trying to succeed at a high level. And accomplish it. But I do agree there seems to be a great chemistry with this lineup, and it seems like we're just getting great results. And I can't attribute it to anything else but that. It just seems like, hey, this seems to work under these conditions. So why fuck with it if it's not broken?
No doubt. Do you ever think, and I'm just reaching, I guess, for a reason, but do you ever think that one of the reasons for your success as a band and your ability to keep writing relevant, competent thrash metal is because you don't take breaks? You don't have a 4 or 5 year gap where you kind of lose touch with what you're doing. You stay in the moment. You stay focused on the mission.
Well, it's a good point, and that's a twofold reason for that. And one of the reasons is that it's a big part of our visibility. We're not on top of the heap when it comes to this. We're somewhere in the middle, still fighting for our space. And there's a lot to be said for fighting for your space. It keeps you honest. That's one of the great things about saying, hey, this is what I am. Love me or hate me, I'm going to throw a punch if you infringe upon my area. And I think that that's kind of the Overkill mentality. And because of that, visibility and focus, records seem to fly out of us on kind of a regular schedule. And I think it works for us. I don't know if it helps the process or is directly responsible for the recent string of success or good chemistry, but for sure, it keeps us focused.
Sure. Now, Blitz, looking back after 30 plus years doing this, do you look back at it now and does it actually seem like it was you? Or does it seem like you're almost seeing a story of somebody else because so much has changed from, the early days where you were, so hungry just to get your name out there to where you are now, one of the most recognized and established, bands in all of thrash metal?
Well, it's for as much as and as long as I've been in this, it's very rare that I get a new question in an interview, and that's one. And
Okay.
I've never been asked that. So as my head is twisting around, sometimes it does seem like it was someone else, and I can tell you that I would think that's because the person evolves. It doesn't necessarily mean that the goal is any different, but I think the internal workings of myself are quite different. There's something really genuine and charming about youthful chaos when you're trying to get it on tape. But there's also obviously good results this many years later, to use the dirty word of mature and evolution, to say, hey, I can still get that chaos on tape, or we can, but we can do it, let's say, more so methodically as chaos for the sake of chaos. But it does seem like someone else sometimes. That's quite an interesting question.
Great. Well, Blitz, let's move forward. Let's talk about the newest project here, Live at Overhausen. Certainly, I don't think there's an Overkill fan in the world that's going to be upset about a set full of Feel the Fire and Horoscope. Talk a little bit about your decision to, look back and more or less tributize those records with this DVD.
There was a couple of reasons that surrounded this. first and foremost, we were contracted to do a DVD. There was anniversaries of these records, one being 30, one being 25. I remember sitting in a dressing room in just kind of a cubicle with Dee Dee in a festival in Belgium called Alcatraz, and we were having a drink and talking about this, and he said, "What about one?" I said, "Well, what about two?" He said, "Done." You know, that was a real. We're real deep thinkers, you know what I mean?
Right.
Good enough for me, man. I'll do two. I mean, the name of the band's Overkill. Let's double it up.
Right.
So I remember that same day, and probably within the next hour, one of the nuclear guys came by, Nuclear Blast, and that was Jaap Wagemacher, who's our A&R guy over in Germany. And we said, "Hey, we got this idea for the DVD." And we just presented it to him that way, and his eyes bugged out, and he said, "Two?" with a question. I said, "Yeah, two." He goes, That's fucking great. Right. Nobody does two. Nobody does two. I said, well, that's kind of the point. You know, so it just seemed like the right thing. And what we did when we were putting it together and why we chose that area of Germany, it was it was 30 years prior to the month that we had our first European tour. And it was our first time to appear on video. Metal Hammer had actually done a VHS tape of us, Anthrax, and Agent Steel. It was called the Metal Hammer Roadshow, live in Bochum. And that's only about 15 minutes from the Overhausen venue. So it just seemed like it was all coming together fast with regard to, let's say, history and vibe and not forgetting where we came from and the first time we did it and doing two records. So I think that's the simplistic view of how it all came about, but there's not much more complicated that can be added to it.
Sure. Now doing these songs, and obviously you've been doing cuts off of these records throughout your history since they were recorded, but going back and doing them kind of start to finish, did it feel different at all since you do have, other than you and Dee Dee, it's not new guys, but not the guys that you recorded with?
Dude, it was a piece of cake with the cheat sheets. Okay. I had lyrics written all over my fucking arm.
Nice.
You know, it's funny because you're right. The songs have come and gone from our set. You know, there's like a classic Overkill. Oh, I guess it's probably 4 or 5 cuts that are always played throughout our career. Fuck You, Elimination, Rotten to the Core, maybe a couple of others. But other songs drift in and out of the set. So I was familiar with 90% of this, as were the other dudes,
sure.
Because they have played songs like Blood and Iron from Field of Fire. We do Nice Day for a Funeral sometimes from Horoscope. A majority of the Horoscope record had been played. But I think the champion or the hero of the day was Eddie Garcia, because Eddie stepped in to do drums for this specifically because Ron Lipnicki, our drummer at the time, said, I can't do this. I can't make the trip. So he was really the focus for all of us because he had to learn both records. I mean, he was familiar with them, but now he had to play them. Right. And I think that us concentrating on him learning it only brought us up to speed even faster. You know, it's kind of like taking the focus off yourself and putting it on someone else, going, hey, do you need me to, you need more vocals in there? Will that help you? No, I need less. Do you need more guitar? Yeah, I need more guitar. And I think as we were focusing on Eddie, it just, again, brought us up to the speed of, let's say, the current day presentation of these songs with that lineup.
No doubt, man. Well, Blitz, you being Overkill, have always had a reputation of going the extra mile for fans, whether it's the simple things like standing outside and shaking every hand and signing every autograph or picture, or even things that even the biggest bands don't do, making special T-shirts when you go to certain cities. What is it about you where you've strived so hard to maintain like a street level credibility, when most of your contemporaries have, long since gone away from that?
Well, I don't think it's anything that's a business plan, for instance. I think it's really just the kind of people we are. I mean, we've always we were metalheads before we were Overkill. And I think that there's always been something very special about that. And I think the longevity of this band or of the scene itself proves that it's an undisposable scene or undisposable bands or people with a great amount of fortitude, conviction, and heart. And that goes, much beyond the band. So if you're in a band and you're touring and you're doing stuff in Overhausen, or I'm going to India the first time this summer, I just got back from Australia. I travel through the States. I meet a lot of fucking people that are very much like me. And I think we know as just human beings that we like that.
Right, sure.
Be around people that you can identify with. So it's not really a hard process to do this stuff. I think it's kind of, for me, it's one of the things I look forward to. I've met a lot of people over these 30 years, and many of them just started out as people who were fans of music or this music in general. And, I've wound up going to hockey games, or they've stayed over at my house, or I stay at theirs, in Germany, or I fly to, Pittsburgh or Michigan or California to see these people, because, we have a commonality. We like the same shit. We're like the same kind of people. So I think that that's really what it is. It's just not overthinking it. It's not, we're bigger than the rest, or, we have to keep our mystique or stay away. This is pretty fucking enjoyable, thing to be doing. And I think to miss out on these moments, with people that are very much like ourselves would be wrong, and only be cheating ourselves as much as cheating them.
Right. Now, Blitz, not a secret. Your former bandmate Bobby Gustafson has chimed in about this release, and I don't want you necessarily to comment on that as much as I'm just curious what your take is why after almost 20 years of not being in the band, he's worrying about you guys covering music, that is part of the legacy.
I don't really think I could speak on it. I'm obviously aware of it. And, we've always wished Bobby publicly, of course, the best, and said that he's, was instrumental in helping get this band off the ground. I mean, that goes without a doubt. But this is not my problem. I can only make this my problem.
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
Right.
And if it's not my fucking problem, then I don't care about it. I like saying this when it comes to certain things, that come up that to a very large degree are unrelated to why you and I are talking. It's only really a sidebar to it. And that's that, we grew up in New Jersey and in the New York area, and, we're second generation Americans. My mom's was first generation. My grandparents were from Ireland, very much like Dee Dee's were from Italy. And it was real simple. What you learned when you were a kid: work hard and keep your fucking mouth shut. That was as simple as it was. And to some degree, it's why Overkill has never, or this version of Overkill has never aired its dirty laundry in public. I'm always willing to deal with issues, but not in the public eye. I just don't think it's the right thing to do. It's been a pure band up to this point. I would rather keep it that way.
Fair enough, man. Well, let's talk about what's coming up for Overkill. I've seen in, I don't know if it's Blabbermouth or where I saw it, but I saw somewhere that you've already got 5-6 ideas, for the next record coming down the pike. Talk a little bit about how that's going, and how if at all it feels different than previous stuff you've worked on.
Well, we're up to 11 pre-production demos. Were done. These were the second demos.
Okay.
I could say, we're not buying our drugs on the street anymore. We're going straight to the pharmacy, and we're getting great effects from this. So it's very motivational. I think that probably what I'm most excited about for this record is that Jason Bittner is now part of that chemistry.
Okay.
Jason, he's been a long-standing friend of ours, known him from way back when Tim Mallory was in the band. He's cut for this, and always has been cut for this, and he's in the top echelon of this stuff. I mean, no slag on Ron Lipnicki. Ron was a great drummer, and I'm not saying that this is going to be better, but this is going to be different. And that's one of the things I'm looking forward to, that we notice all those differences within the band, all those nuances. So I think that probably the biggest surprise for me on this record, or or the highest incitement of motivation is having a different guy behind the kit and a guy who's more than qualified to do it, who's not just doing it but wanting to do it. So I think that we have something special in the very near future.
Excellent. Now, was he part of the creative of these songs, or is it still you basically writing songs and then seeing how he fits to them?
Well, Dee Dee and I are really the originators and finishers of them, but they go through the process. You know, It's not, here's the riff. It's not, here's the riff, this is what you should play. It's here's the riff, what do you suggest? And I think that makes it more, band-like then. I mean, what's the sense of having this great drummer with all this creative input, and not letting him be able to use it? And we would do the same with Ron. I mean, there would be suggestions. For instance, this is the verse. We don't need double bass in the verse. We need to be able to hear the vocals, but we're going to give you free reign throughout the rest of the song. So we're doing the same with Jason. So his creative input is in there, with regard to idea and writing.
Excellent. Now, when can we expect, or is it too early to ask that for as far as a new record?
We're slated for, the end of February, 2019.
Okay, so still a while to kind of craft it and see what comes out of it, huh?
Oh, no doubt. I mean, it's not just, hey, here are the ideas, we think they're great, let's move on with it. I mean, they still have to develop. And if we're done with this demo, which is the second demo, it doesn't mean there won't be, another two that are done after this with changes. And that's where that creative input comes in. I mean, Dave Lynch has been in this band for almost 2 decades. He's hugely musical. I mean, he is like our heavy meter. You know what I mean? Right. It's like, I'll do something that's like a little overly melodic, and he goes through his dictionary of heavy going, sorry, man, it's not in here. You can't use this shit. So he's really the guy that brings, that whole element to the band and changes parts and does, melodic overdubs to, for instance, enhance songs. So, Dave's writing is hugely instrumental. So when Dave finally gets his hands on everything, when we're, have vocal lines inserted, et cetera, Dave's going to take this record up a whole nother step. So there's still a huge process here for us to, go through to be done.
Sure. Very cool. Well, let me ask you one that has nothing to do with any of this stuff, but just one that I've always wondered about you guys, and I never had the chance to ask. You obviously have had numerous members that have come in and out of Overkill over the years, but as someone that has been seeing the band all the way back to, 86, I think was the first time I saw Overkill, the energy has never changed. I mean, it's always full speed ahead, 1,000 miles an hour, start to finish of a show, and it has been no matter who's been in the band. And what I've always been curious about for you is, how do you know when you bring somebody in that they're going to be able to maintain that? Because I'm sure you're well aware, you've seen a million shows. There's a lot of guys that can do it when they're in the studio, but they get out on the stage and they just don't have an energy like what is demanded out of Overkill.
Well, energy is contagious. I mean, first of all, it's like a drug. And I think that once you get a taste of it, you want more of it. Especially if you're in a thrash metal band, I mean, you at least have it in you. It's in your DNA to be attracted to energy. Just in its purest sense, whatever that be, coming in through your ears, movement, how you would react to that energy. So I think that anybody who's been in this band has that already in them. It's a matter of bringing it out of them. And I don't think, for instance, Dee Dee and myself bring it out, but I do think that it's hugely contagious when, everybody is comfortably in that energy zone and has the opportunity to express it. Because for sure it's one of our mainstays, like you said, but it's also something that we really enjoy because it is the drug. And once you get a taste of that, you really kind of crave it and chase it. You're always chasing that first energy high, and I've been chasing it now for 35 years,
Right.
But it's worked, it's kind of worked because, it becomes inspiring from show to show. I also think, for me personally, I can't speak for the other guys, but I really love, living in that moment. And what's my most important show in my career is going to be my next one.
Right.
I think my next one is Mexico City. But, if I'm thinking that this is the most important show, you're probably going to get the highest level of energy that I have within me at that particular moment. It's not going to be anything less than the highest level. So I think that somewhere in there, it's philosophy, it's contagious, and it's also, for me personally, living in the moment.
Well, whatever it is, it works, man, because people have said many, many things about Overkill, but I certainly don't think anybody's ever said, man, that was a pretty boring show.
Right. Love us or hate us, we've never ripped you off.
Exactly. Well, Blitz, the new record or the new DVD, it's called Live at Overhausen. When is it out?
This is out at the end of May. I think the release date, we're actually going to release it at a festival on the 19th of May.
Okay.
That's in the same area it was recorded in.
Okay.
And then the following Monday, it's available worldwide.
All
So
right.
it'll be sold by us personally at the festival in Germany, and then the following Monday, I guess that would be the 23rd or 22nd, it's available worldwide.
Excellent. And where can people go online to keep up with you and tour dates and Overkill and all that stuff?
Well, Overkill at Facebook, Overkill Band at Twitter, WreckingCrew.com. We're not Instagram people. It gets too many people in trouble, that Instagram.
No doubt, dude. Well, I'll tell you what, Blitz. Why don't you pick one of the tracks that you like from Live at Overhausen? Tell us a quick story about it. We'll wrap this one up with that.
Well, let's see here. How about Thanks for Nothing? This was something written during the horoscope sessions. Rob Canavino was instrumental in bringing parts of this to fruition with part of the riff. It's still one of my favorite songs to this day. I think it was a song that, even though written back in 1990, released in 91, it still has, let's say, the snot of contemporary thrash metal in 2018. So this is Bobby Blitz with all your heavy metal hits. Thanks for Nothing, live from Oberhausen.
All right.
Am I hired?
It's perfect. You got the gig, man. Well, let's check it out right now. This is brand new stuff from Overkill. It's Thanks for Nothing right here on your Classic Metal Show.